What up, though? And welcome back to I'm Growing Man. It's your man John D in the building. Uh Shout out to all the educators still on summer break. The time is winding down, and not to rush you guys, but looks like I'll be going back a little earlier. I'm not for sure if I said in the last podcast, but I've been promoted to assistant principal, and I will be getting back into the administrative game. And I want to say this: the experience I had out, leaving administration and then going as far as back into the classroom, it helped me become a better educator. So I'm really excited about having this opportunity and being an assistant principal where I can help inspire educators. And that's what we're there for, right? But I really wanted to talk about different ways educators can start looking forward to this year. You know, we have to think about how can we reflect on the difference between getting through the year and building mastery as a professional. We have to think about getting through the year. It's more so in your first 3 years. Now, some of you may not have found a routine yet, but this episode, I'm gonna do my best to help you to so you can see the growth that you can recognize as early as like weekly, monthly, or even quarterly. So check it out. So we have to think about autopilot. And if you don't know what autopilot is when you're just going through the motions, you're not being observant of what's going on. You have to take control of your life by being more present in the moment. The more present you are, the fewer mistakes you make. The more present you are, the mistakes you make, you learn from them so that you don't make them again. So we have to consider that when we're teaching, because honestly, we're looking to teach a content area until we find a level of mastery, meaning that whoever comes in this classroom, whoever, that you can teach them the standards of whatever state you're in. If you cannot do that, that is the journey you're on as a teacher. I realized I never understood that until I went back into the classroom. I wasn't in teaching long enough to, I won't say that. I wasn't in teaching mentally in the mindset of mastery because I was just thinking about trying to get into administration at one point. But going back in, I realized if you prepare for mastery, it can make things so much easier. But you have to do that on purpose. And I think a lot of teachers, those teachers that do lesson plans, they can prepare somewhat. But those who don't do lesson plans and they just teach on the fly, you're doing yourself a disservice, no matter where you are, because anything could happen. And I think that preparation is it's the best plan for anything, even if it doesn't go right. You at least you have something, a set of something that does not work. But if you don't take that part seriously, it's going to be way more difficult for you. I do believe that if we get into the mindset of mastering the craft of teaching versus it's a job, I think that you would appreciate it a little more. So just listen to this part. Those of you that are teaching and it feels like a job, it's because you haven't found the entire view of teaching. You have to go around the entire art of it to master it. And a lot of times we just look at it from face value, but there's so many things that come with teaching. So if you are not intentionally trying to find the gaps that you have in the art of teaching, it can beat you up. And that's when you're not working on your craft and you're just working it as a job. So we have to totally consider, are we working to improve? And I mean every part of the craft and teaching, from classroom management to pedagogy to communication to routine to time management to effective questions to helping students how to respond to specific questions so that they'll have an idea of how to think about that question. A lot of us don't realize that a lot of our a lot of our population come from underprivileged backgrounds where a parent is probably working all the time and supervision is limited, and they don't have the mindset of, I have to study or focus for my adulthood, because they're probably babysitting, watching kids, their siblings, preparing dinner. And you know what's so crazy? I can say this, and everybody don't really. I can't say everybody may not understand what I'm talking about, but I will tell you this: there's a large population of kids that have to mature faster in the adult aspect versus the kid aspect. Like, they think because they're doing things that you learn as an adult that they're maturing, but they're immature. And as teachers, we have to keep that in mind. Like, these are kids at the end of the day. No matter what they tell you, no matter how smart they are, no matter how much they lack, they're kids. And it's our job to hopefully work on our craft where we can ignite something with them to want to be more than. Because can you imagine? This is for every teacher. Imagine this: if you worked on your communication and you came up with a set of words, the correct tone, the perfect delivery, where a kid who you deep down feel like never had a chance, but you put these words together and they understand what you're saying. And then they ask you, what can you tell me so that I can better my chances of getting out of this place that I'm in? And you give them that information. And just imagine if they listened to it and they followed along. It would change the trajectory of their family. And it came from you, the teacher, the one who continued to find ways to improve their craft so that whoever came into your classroom, you were able to give them something that not even their parents could give them. Like the strategy of completion, to find ways to succeed and enjoy the journey along the way. But you have to you have to keep this in mind. If you can't empathize with your audience, you will always think that they understand what you mean. And if that's the case, that's a tough teaching year. And I don't want anybody to go through that. So, a part of my goal is to develop relationships with my staff where I can find out ways that I can help them in areas that they want to grow. Because my wife told me, it's a difference between support and help. A lot of times we try to help people, but they don't want our help. So we have to support them the way they want to be supported. And typically, if you support people the way they want to be supported, they're more likely to do, uh, they're more likely to keep themselves accountable. Now, I'm not saying that percentage rate is high, but I'm willing to try any and everything to become an inspiration for my staff. I do believe that we should do a daily reflection as a tool for growth. And when I say that, like at the end of the day, at the end of the night, however you wind down, I think that every human should reflect. Because if you don't reflect, you could possibly repeat something that you did that same day knowing that you shouldn't be. So if we could get into the practice of reflection, especially as teachers, because as teachers, we come into contact with so many different personalities and backgrounds that if we can slow down and reflect on what we went through, we may have better answers the next day to help those students find that light bulb. And I really believe that. And I feel like at this point in my life, I know that no kid wants to fail on purpose. But if we don't help them understand, the truth in the message, it'll go right over their head. And I think as teachers and educators, we should be willing to find a way to master the craft. Um, you know, my my wife used to say that before I got to this point of this journey, she used to always say, you know, people generally become the adult that they felt like they needed as a child. And I feel like teachers forget that sometimes. Like, and even if you didn't need help, you have kids that need help. Now, if you can't empathize with the students that need help, you have to come to terms with yourself. Is this the right fit for you? Because you're doing a disservice to not only education, but to yourself. You come into work not being able to empathize with your own population is wasting your time and it's causing you grief. And I don't want educators to feel like they can't they can't vent on things that's going on. The problem with venting is, what are you doing to prevent that type of vent from happening again? Are you working on your craft? You know, if we actually reflected, I'm telling you, we would reduce so many mistakes. So becoming that teacher is going to require you to do more than the bare minimum. And I'll say this, through my life, I've always did really well in the areas that I was good in, but in other areas it was the bare minimum. So it almost kind of balances out to being very average. But now I'm so interested in improving my areas of weakness that I want people to feel the energy of me improving. Within my first year, I want 100% teacher return and be excited about next year because they already know the program that we've established. This is my intent, to make educators want to be better than the educators that they had. Let's see. I think also teachers need to consider sharing their childhood journey, like who inspired them, what made them become responsible and taking their education seriously. I tell my kids, I kind of got lucky. My foundation, I enjoyed like the puzzle of learning, but I still did not understand how to learn. And I told my kids that I was like, my immaturity allowed me to miss a lot of teaching moments. And Lord knows I had ADD and ADHD, but this wasn't diagnosed then. And I'm looking back. I mean, I know that I was getting in trouble for things that I couldn't remember, like actually thinking. It was just like a impulse. But after I matured, I realized like I was so happy because I'm telling you, when I matured, it was a different kid. And being that adult that remembers that, I have a lot more tolerance for students because, you know, through all the years, no students want to disappoint their parents. And they somehow find ways to do it. And we have to consider, the environment they come from. Their parents are doing the best they can. But I think a lot of times we don't give their parents grace because those parents had parents with even gave these kids even less supervision. So we have to remember that teaching students, you don't know where you are generationally, and that one conversation could be a butterfly effect for the remainder of your teacher career. So please consider this. If you really want to master the art of teaching, you should get therapy. You should find ways to unlayer your childhood and find out the kid that you protected so that you can be more empathetic for other kids that may not have any adult that can recognize that hurt, that piece of that place of pain. So let's consider that, okay? This next part is all about making improvement as a lifestyle. Like I always say, make today better than yesterday. Like it's not a strategy, right? I have a routine, and if things go bad, I need to figure out what went bad that caused me to lose my focus so that I can make sure it doesn't happen again. Just like I said earlier, if you don't reflect, how can you prevent those things from happening? It takes a very aware person who believes that they're important enough to change a behavior. Like you have to believe you're that important. Like making today better than yesterday is a mindset I've been practicing since like 2000, I would say 2002. Don't worry about anything you can't control. I was saying it, but I didn't realize I wasn't practicing it. But when I realized how to practice it, it changed my life. Like I started putting my effort into things that I could control and the result changed. So we have to get in the mindset. Improvement is a lifestyle. We can't use this idea like it's a strategy to improve. No, you can work on anything. Self-improvement is how teachers show up. Not just what they do in a classroom, but what time they arrive to work, what's their morning routine, uh, do they get fitness in? Like, are you waking up just in time to get to work? Now, I'm gonna tell you, the idea that you do that on a regular basis, you can't possibly think you're gonna be your best self. And I need you to consider you're working with other people's kids. You should use this as a badge of honor. People trust you to change the mindset of students. You could be that teacher that says, you know what, Mr. Such and Such or Mrs. Such and Such did this, and I remember like I was on the road to this because I'm telling you, when you put in that effort, that is a different vocabulary word. I can't describe that 12 years from now, they tell you that you changed your life because whatever you said, whatever you did more than their previous teacher. You have to think like, what can I do to convince this student that they're important? Convincing students who already know they're important to do work, that's not really teaching. Well, I guess it is teaching. It just, this isn't the field for that. That's more like instruction. You would have to like go to where people will pay. Where we're in a place of, you know, like growing together as a legit community. Whatever I know, you know. Whatever you know, I know. So let's build together. But we have to do more. You know, your morning routine is really what's going to separate you from people who don't have a morning routine. And I'm telling you, there people who have a morning routine, they start off their days going to work 90% better than everybody else. And only reason why I say 90% is because I just want to show you a morning routine reduces a lot of uh, brain, let me see, what is it called? Brain, I don't want to say brain dust or anything like that, but brain fog. Like when you already know what you're doing, you can see things in your day. But if you don't have anything set up, like I just saw a homegirl of mine just said she didn't realize how messed up her life was because she just now used a planner and she's like doing everything in her head. Like if you don't have a routine, you could just be out here just moving and grooving. Like you got to be working towards something. You got to know where you're going. If you don't have it written out, like how do you know where you're going? You keeping everything in your head. How do you keep yourself accountable if you don't have a routine? Like it should be written down. Listen to this. If you are serious about the art, how about this? If you're just a serious adult and you want to improve, you should write down a routine that you should learn how to follow. Like no matter what time of day, you should be participating in something that you can find yourself in a routine. Unless you just have the freedom to do whatever you want. But I'm telling you, when you have a routine, you are constantly sharpening swords on your tool belt. And these are days when you're not doing anything. You like, man, I got to get this done. So when you put those hours on those days, they just get sharper and sharper. And when the time comes, you don't have to be prepared because you've been working all of this time for the moment to occur. But are you prepared for it if you're not working on a consistent basis? And this goes to every educator out there. What are you doing to improve your craft better than last year? I don't even care about test grades. I do know that they're important, but if you are not specifically finding something that you can work on, is it classroom management? Is it time? Time management? Is it, like I said, pedagogy? Is it relationships with students? Is it the tone and inflection of your voice when you respond to students that say something crazy? Like you have to specifically write something down and say, I am going to work on this. This is going to change by this date. How about this? Last year, I gave my students a survey. The beginning of the year, quarter, half, 3 quarters. It was just to get a reflection on me as a teacher. It was like, what do you like about the class? What could I change in the class for you to be more engaged in it? It was about 10 questions. The last question was, now the first 9 was, all I did was this. I went to the chat GPT and I said, hey, give me a set of questions that I can give my students so I can get feedback so I can improve as a teacher. And on the last one, I was just like, say anything that I didn't ask so that I can make sure that you're being heard. I'm telling you, it changes your student's perspective about you. If you do that, you are trying to get better. Like, sometimes people say, I don't got time for that. Well, if you don't have time for that, then you can't get better because you work with kids and kids are looking for structure. They're looking for consistency. And if you don't if you don't prepare for any of this, like how do you respond? Students know when adults are not prepared. So I'm telling you, find ways to improve so that you can enjoy the art more. You know, when you do this, also, number one thing I need you guys, communication is key. If you set your boundaries early and you stand by them, but you can't get lazy on them. You have to stand by your boundaries. The students will learn what is acceptable. But if you do not stand on them, they will keep pushing until you break. And once you break, you're compromised and you're not going to be as happy. And then if you want it to stop, you're going to have to start all over, recreate a whole different culture. And being that we're at the beginning of the year, we need to go in with the mindset of, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and write it down, have it in different parts of the room so it can remind you. Because your classroom is only as effective as your boundaries. And I'm not saying you should yell at them when they cross it, because they are kids. And even the kids that continue to do so. But at some point, you're going to have to respond in a way where you're trying to get a different, response out of them. Like, hey, are you like trying to hurt my feelings? Because, I feel like we're establishing this relationship and I've asked you 3 times. Can you please not do that? Because it makes me feel a type of way. And I'm trying to become this teacher you need. And I'm telling you, when you can talk to your students like that, it it, it makes them look at you crazy, but it de-escalates anything. And if you do that consistently, they will apologize about anything, because they don't want to do that to you, because at the end of the day, don't nobody want to be spoken to like that. But we have to teach them how to respond and our expectations. And a lot of times we expect kids to respond in a way that we would respond now, knowing that we didn't have as much information when we were their age. And neither we didn't have their parents. So we have to keep that in perspective when we are passing all of this judgment on to kids who had no control over who their parents were. I'm gonna have to end this, but on my next episode, I am going to get some more information on how to prepare for your school year. I do want to help as much as I can, because I do feel like I know some techniques that help me in the classroom, and they may not help you, but if you haven't tried it, it may help you. And I can tell you why I do it and give you an example. There's no cursing in my classroom at the beginning of class. Every year, I have the speech. Hey, I don't like cursing. I know some of you got bad mouths. If you curse, I need you to just say, I apologize, and we'll move on. But you have to apologize, because I'm an adult and I don't like hearing it. I say, is that cool? And everybody's cool. So we go through it. People curse, say, they look up, and I'm like, looking, put my arms up in the air, like, you're not gonna say nothing? It was like, oh, my bad. And it got to that, right? Now, I do want to say there is a point where there's some students that don't really practice that. They have other issues. But at the end of the day, if you create the boundary, majority, if not all of your students will follow the boundary, because they don't want to disrespect you. Now, disrespect can look like play with them. So kids play too much. So we got to keep that in mind. So when kids know that, I guess the culture in the room will know to not speak like that in your classroom. So you have to be consistent, uh, and watch your tone, watch how you speak to them. Speak to them in a tone somebody would need to speak to you to get the best out of you. We have to be more mature in how we respond to these kids, because they don't have any communication practice the way we do. So we have to be more empathetic of their background, so that we can change the behavior we're not liking. It's been a wonderful time talking to y'all. Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. GATA. Get after that action, or the action will get after you. Be great on purpose.